Hello, folks. Today we are making a video talking about the tinnitus support group for musicians with tinnitus that Tim and myself do for Tinnitus UK. In the video, I'd like to talk to you about what we do, why musicians come to the support group, why they benefit from it, and also to introduce you to Tim, who co-leads it with me, and just generally give you some information about the support group. So before we start, it's free. You can join anywhere in the world. All you got to do is click a link and it goes to a Zoom sort of meeting for Tinnitus UK. It's confidential and it's private. So any musician watching this, and if you're going through the journey with tinnitus and you'd like to meet other people or other musicians specifically who have tinnitus, this might be something for you and this video might be of interest for you. But before we get into what we actually do in the support group, I'd like to introduce you to the star of the show, who is a rock legend and a very good friend of mine and a lovely guy to boot. So, Tim, could you talk to us a little bit about who you are, what you've done, your rock legend status, that sort of thing?
Okay. Hi, folks. Yes, a bit about me. Well, I'm a lifelong musician, like Jack, and that journey has led me from A to B, where I'm at now, which is a musician in a studio that I'm starting now. As a younger chap, I was in bands, All About Eve and the Sisters of Mercy, the ones you probably know. And then I moved into teaching and also writing music for TV a bit later on in life. Interestingly, I earned more writing music for TV than all the bands put together. Such is the nature of the music business. That's about it, really. That's the potted history.
Okay, Tim, I think you've been a little bit modest there because All About Eve, you dropped those two names like they were just sort of, put them out there. But All About Eve and Sisters of Mercy, they are two legendary bands. And just a sort of funny coincidence that happened, I actually opened for All About Eve. I think it would have been 2002, and I remember it was a really big gig on my calendar because you guys were such legends. But can you tell us a little bit about how you started All About Eve and how that sort of came about?
Yeah, I mean, it was like a lot of things in music. It was so fragile, in the sense that one thing led to another, and it really was that, just one thing leading to another. I happened to be in a band with somebody else whose girlfriend knew Julianne, the singer, and the band that I was in eventually fell to bits. We were up north struggling, and Julianne got in touch and says, "Look, I'm sort of trying to put a band together. Do you want to come down and have a sort of a jam?" So I did. Just went down on the day, just for the day. I got into a rehearsal room, bizarrely just 2 minutes down the road from where I live now, and we played a couple of songs, which was sort of semi-formed. They got a bit of a sort of a half song going, and I played guitar over that. And at the end of the session, which I knew had gone well, she said, "What do you reckon then? Are you up for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." So I moved down to London, and promptly everybody left the band apart from me and Julianne. So it was just me and her. We were just thrown together, to try and get on with it, which we did. And we were very fortunate that in those days, you had a lot more limit to your sort of avenues for getting your music out there. There was like 3 music papers, and there were independent record labels which you could send cassettes off to. And if you sent out enough, you usually got some sort of response, usually a negative one. But in our case, we were fortunate that one record company said, "Look, we'll try a single, we'll do a single with you," which was the first single, D for Desire. And that was the start of it. It by no means was that our kind of big break. Our big break came a lot later, but it sounds odd, but actually getting an independent single out there back in the 80s was not that big a deal. It was kind of a baby step type thing. But that's how we initially got going.
And All About Eve, I mean, man, what a band. I mean, the singing, the songs, I mean, you guys were legends. I mean, like I say, I opened for you guys and you weren't in the band anymore, I don't think, by that time, Tim.
Okay, yeah.
So it would have been like early 2000s. And I just remember the room being packed full of people and the anticipation was so exciting because, you know, you guys were just folk legends or folk pop legends, you know? Um, and also, we got to talk about the Sisters of Mercy. I mean, you know, you dropped that name as well, like it was just, you know, the Sisters of Mercy, another absolute legendary band. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that?
Yeah, again, it was through association, really. I mean, it's quite a cliquey area of music, is that area of music. It's kind of not really a London thing for start off. So it was kind of a northern thing. So it helped that I was from the north. And they tend to change guitar players like shirts. This is so I was in the position where I'd just separated from All About Eve, and I was back up north thinking about what I was going to do next. And I got a call from the sound guy that said for the Sisters and said, "Look, Sisters need a guitar player. They're going to start gigging again. They're finishing off an album. What do you reckon?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll go meet them." I mean, you know, I went to see the Sisters as a kid. You know, I remember seeing them in Leeds when I was 16, thinking they were great. So I went along, and we hit it off. Played on the album. They were very nearly finished with the album, but I got to sort of spray guitar all over it as a sort of overdubs. And then we went on tour for a couple of years, playing all the back catalogue, which I got to admit was a bit of a challenge as someone that's always kind of written songs and played them. It was pretty weird playing somebody else's guitar parts. I've not really done that before. So quite challenging. But it was, I've got to say, out of all the bands I've been in, the whole experience of being in the Sisters on tour was incredible. You know, everything you can imagine and a little bit more. It was great.
So let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit now about the support group. So for you guys watching, what it is that it's, like I say, it's free to everyone. It's you know, it's private, it's confidential. And Tim and myself have been doing this now for about a year. Is it a year now that we've been doing it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, must be.
Yeah, I think it's about a year. And over this year, we've had many different types of people. We've had specifically musicians, we've had audiologists, we've had record company label people, we've had industry people come in, PR people, because there's lots of elements of the music industry that struggle with hearing that often don't get thought about. For example, there was a lady that did PR, and that was really surprising to me because when she said I do PR, it immediately made sense to me that that would also be a problem because, you know, you're so focused on musicians with it. But I thought, of course, in fact, it might even be more of a problem because with PR people, they're supposed to be really high energy, enthusiastic about new projects. And the first thing people do is they turn the volume up because that's how they want to get the excitement. It's just something that happens all the time. You know, you want to get excited about new singles, so the record company or the AR, whoever's involved, the manager will turn that music up till 11 because they want to get the excitement going because everyone's got to, you know, use lots of energy on this new project. So when she was there, I thought, wow, this problem is much wider than we actually think. It's not just musicians, it's not just mix engineers or sound guys, it's across the board. Record company people, as I've said, we've had a couple of record company label heads come to it. So it's open to everyone. And what happens is that people get to share their stories, their struggles, their experiences, their lessons, and all the other musicians get a chance to talk as well. And I think that by sharing their stories, they get to learn from each other, and they feel something that I think is really, really valuable. And that is they don't feel so alone, because I know that when I was struggling with my tinnitus over the years, many, many times I've had it for 21 years now. I've known that one of the biggest problems I've had is actually feeling alone. And I think that having this space where musicians can come together, share their stories, takes away 50%, well, takes away a lot of the mental challenge, because I think of tinnitus as a physical challenge, the sound, and 50% mental challenge. And I think we really start to work on that mental challenge by just not feeling so alone. And I think that's one of the main things that comes out of the support group. So, Tim, I want to ask you something. What are
Mhm.
some of the things that you have been surprised by, or some of the things that you've noticed, or some of the things that you've learnt by being involved with the support group and listening to all these different types of people share their story?
Well, I've got to say the most obvious one, which is kind of I think I knew all along, is just the reality that most of us musicians and music lovers, we've been walking around blind to the risks really, and consequently, we've all kind of affected our hearing in some way, and that really is the takeaway for me from it, which is what I kind of suspected, which was I can't be the only one that sort of walked into this situation not really informed or aware of the risks. And that seems to be the case with most of the people that are online. Like you say, the woman that's kind of going about her business, listening to new releases at sort of welding volume. We've all done that. It makes it more exciting when it's that loud. But you could say the same thing about sort of jumping off a cliff into the sea, incredibly exciting. But unless you know what's underneath, what you're jumping into, um, you kind of really kind of chancing your arm without the right sort of information, really. I mean, that's a bad analogy, that cliff thing. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that up until now, I don't think there's actually really any awareness of the risks involved in just putting your earbuds in, listening to it loud because it's exciting, going to a gig, listening to music for hours on end at quite extreme volume, exciting things to do, no doubt about it. And I'm also aware it comes across as the anti-fun police trying to sort of clamp down on this. But the reality of the situation is it's got to be kind of managed a little bit better than it is at the minute, both in terms of the practical side of it, in the volumes that we're exposed to, and also the education around exactly what it is we're doing, when we go to these things, when we put our earbuds in and crank it up. It's all going to happen. I get the feeling over the next 5-10 years, it's all going to be like a tsunami of information, and it'll probably get sorted out so that people actually are a bit more careful. The industry's a bit more regulated. But at the moment, it's the Wild West, isn't it? It really is. We're like sort of pioneers trying to sort of get on top of this problem, which is prevalent throughout the music industry, clearly by the people that come along. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tim. I do think we are on the cusp of a new attitude, for want of a better word, because you and I
I
both come from
hope
a
so.
time when um, loud was just exciting, and it wasn't seen as reckless. It was just seen as part of the deal. If you were a rock musician, um, you know, I come from a rock, background, even though I went acoustic when I was in my sort of late 20s, but I come from essentially a very rock background. And nobody was nobody even considered talking about it. Nobody considered talking about volume. Nobody was wearing earplugs. Nobody from the managers, from the labels to the sound guys, to especially not the other musicians. I mean, you know, musicians aren't always clued up to a lot of things, you know. I mean, they are now. I'm really surprised at how savvy musicians are now. And I wonder if that's the effect of the internet or whether just people are more savvy. But, you know, when I was starting out in my, late teens, it just was not part
Mhm.
of the conversation at all. Nobody, my parents, nobody was saying, hey, you should protect your ears. It just wasn't part of the conversation. So, and I
Yeah,
think,
I'm not sure it's changed a lot. I'm not sure. I mean, only because I think probably professionally, musicians that are kind of, yeah, early doors professionals, they're more savvy to it. But just to give you an example, it's like my I've got a musical daughter, 15 years old, starting to play in bands, at school, in rooms, not much bigger than this, with a full drum kit in the. Uh, she's the only one in the whole group that's got ear protection. The only one, and that's because I've forced her to wear it. Um,
that's interesting.
so I think that's the thing. It's still got a long way to go. That shouldn't really be an issue, at
Yeah,
secondary school. All this stuff should. I mean, that's what we're up against. Really, it's you got to get people early before the damage is done. When I think about, I did years of teaching performance and songwriting, and we were sent probably thousands and thousands of kids into these rooms, with the drum kits, small box rooms. You could barely bear to be in there for a couple of minutes when you came to check out what they were doing. They were down there for an hour. Christ knows how many kids have ended up in the position that we're in. I mean, this is pre-tinnitus for me. It's, I still believe it's a mess. I've got to be honest. I can't, I don't want to put a downer on it, but I think, I wish it was a bit more optimistic and people were a bit more clued up, but I don't really see it myself.
that's interesting.
I really don't see it. No,
I mean, I agree. I
I want
think
it
I
to
agree
be.
with you on the fact that I think professional musicians are more clue because, you and I were professional when we were, doing in the band and stuff. We were at a professional level, especially you.
Yeah,
Um, and but I think professional musicians are slightly more aware of what they're doing now with earplugs. But I think I agree with you
I
when I think
agree.
about it. I did a lot of event gigs, um, for about 8 to 10 years. I did a lot of event gigs. I'm talking like I was gigging every weekend. And what surprised me is people's attitude that were non-musicians. So people in the audience, are part of the event. I had people bringing up young children up to the speaker, and I felt like
Yeah,
I really felt my instinct was to stop what I was doing and say, please, move back from the speaker with the child. You know what I mean? It's like, so I agree with you that attitudes, and I think this is the problem, Tim. I think that there is no bridge between the reality of the danger and the actual danger. What I mean is this: with smoking, there is now a mental bridge. We know that if there is smoke, if someone is smoking, we instinctively know that there is danger to our lungs because there's been so much information over the years. So there's that bridge of knowledge, if you see what I mean. I don't
I
think there
do.
is that connection with volume yet. I don't think it exists. I
No.
think that people think, oh, just turn it up, it's fine. And there is no bridge of
Mhm.
information that's saying, actually, if you turn up the volume to ridiculous proportions, there is a chance that you might actually that evening damage your hearing. And I think that this is what it comes down to. It comes from a lack of somehow we've got to a point where there isn't that information connection yet. There isn't that. I mean, I think it's getting better, but there just isn't that connection where people go, this is really, really loud. I should be protecting my ears. That to me seems to be the case still. Would you agree, Tim?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that you've hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what it is. And the smoking analogy is bang on. That's exactly, exactly right. I mean, we all used to smoke without really, without it hitting home what that's actually doing to you. But now, you buy a cigarette packet, there's a picture of somebody's destroyed lungs on the front of it. Might seem extreme, but we need to go that far, really. I think with certainly attending gigs. I mean, it's the audience as much as the kind of bands. The bands are at risk because they're doing it day in, day out. But the audience themselves are at huge risk from stepping into an environment at 100 decibels for I don't know, two bands playing for what? Support band's going to play for what? 45 minutes. Main band's going to play for an hour and a half. It's a lot of time to be listening to 100 dB. A hell of a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I just don't really understand how that is legal. Because let's face it, if you're on a construction site, you and you hurt your ears because you won't actually kind of got your earphones on while you're operating the pneumatic drill, which is interestingly is less quiet than a gig. You'd actually probably be able to sit back and relax for the rest of your life on a kind of a claim against future earnings because you've got tinnitus. Try doing that at a gig. Good luck to you, But it needs to change to that degree where you can actually, where it's regulated. It's so hard because, of course, people don't want to listen to music quieter. And maybe the way around it is to say, okay, you don't have to listen to it quieter, but you got the option to listen to it quieter. Here is a free set of earplugs with every ticket, and we advise that you wear them when you go into the venue. Something like that might be a start. So at least you're giving people the information that, look, it's a very real prospect. You could damage your ears experiencing this evening. If you want to rule that out, then wear these, what's it going to cost for them to manufacture those disposable earplugs en masse? 10 pence a pair, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that really adding a lot onto the ticket price? I'd like to see that. I'd like to see some element of choice rather than ignorance.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Tim. I think that it does start on a governmental sort of, policy level. There's lots of things they can do. For example, here's an idea that just come to me. The sound guy could very easily register the volume of the sound check, and people that are attending the gig could be sent a text because, we're all into sort of, put your phone number in, keep up to date with, the people that are about to attend the show could be sent a text from the sound measurement saying, we predict that the volume will be this loud. Keep that in mind. So that people turning up to the gig who are waiting outside, for example, could get a text message saying the level of the sound check was at this dB level. You might want to consider wearing earplugs. Just something that simple would already get people thinking about earplugs. And if they are readily available at a show, given away for free, it gets the thought process. It starts creating that bridge between the danger and the actual results, like we said with the smoking, because people go, okay, wow, it's the sound guys registered the sound check at I don't know if this sounds completely ridiculous now. It's just an idea that's come to me. But, if they get a message saying, okay, the sound check was at 85, 90 dB, I don't know, let's just say, earplugs are advised and they're giving them away for free, people are starting to think, oh, okay, when I go to gigs, maybe I should protect my ears because it's a thing, it's just little things like that could be, really sort of just ideas that could really get that sort of people thinking. Because I remember going to clubs when I was in my early 20s and we'd be there for hours. And I can't even begin to imagine how loud that music was. I mean, it would be absurd to even think about it now. Um,
Hmm.
but not one of us, we just didn't, we just didn't cross our minds. So yeah, I think it's really good. And I think that what we're doing with Tinnitus UK, the musician support group, the article that you instigated in Music Week, Tim, that was a great article that they did about you and about the work that you're doing with tinnitus. It's more and more stuff like that. And I think it starts on a governmental policy level and it starts on an informational level, people talking about it, spreading more and more information about it, saying, hey, you know what? This is actually a thing. It's a really serious thing that you can damage. You can literally damage your hearing in one night. I've read
Yeah.
multiple stories, and I'm sure you have as well, Tim, where people say, "Oh, I attended a gig back in the 70s or the 80s, and my ears have never stopped ringing." When I hear that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah,
it's not
yeah, it's a
how it
common
should
one,
be,"
is that? It's a really
So I
common
think
one.
it starts with people thinking about protecting their ears.
Hmm.
All right, Tim. Well, look, I'm going to call it quits here before the video gets a little bit too long.
Okay.
So just to recap, if you are a musician watching this and you want to join the support group, it's free, it's confidential, it's private. You can join from anywhere in the world. We've had people from all parts of the world joining us, all over Europe, America, etc. And it's every second Monday of the month. So this is the first Monday of the month when we're filming this on the 7th of October. So it'll be next Monday. So every second Monday of the month, it starts at, is it 7 p.m. UK time?
7 p.m. UK time, yeah.
7
And
p.m.
I
UK
think
time. I'm
what's
always mixing up with the European time because I'm based in
that's
Norway.
all right.
So 7 p.m. UK time, that's Central European time, 8 p.m. It's for about an hour and something. It's free and you can talk. You don't have to talk. So it's all good. And it's somewhere where you can go and feel less alone and share your story. Tim, have you got anything you
Yeah,
want to say
actually,
before
I
we
should
close
say,
up?
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because when we started doing this, I thought, oh, we're doing it for them. We're doing it for the kids who've got the tinnitus too. But I've got to be honest. The more it's gone on, and the more people we've talked to, I actually find I'm kind of getting as much out of it myself as probably they are. It's it really is. It's like that. It's kind of just exactly what you say. Really, just being all together, all musicians talking about it. I've actually found it quite empowering myself. It's um, it's useful, helpful. So if you've got tinnitus, even doesn't matter how long you've been living with it, if it's new or it's old, um, you come along, just try it out and see how you go with it. If you don't want to come back afterwards, fine. But I guarantee you'll get something out of it. Yeah, give it a go.
Yeah, I feel the same, Tim. I feel like even though we're leading it, I feel like I'm learning from a lot of these guys. I mean, so many tips and tricks that I've learned. Especially one thing that comes to mind is about the in-ear monitoring. I don't know if you remember that session where we had about 3 or 4
I do.
engineers all
Yeah.
in one
Yeah.
session, and they were sort of
Uh-huh.
telling us about um, in-ear monitoring and the actual logistics of them. What are the best ones, what are the worst ones? And I was thinking, wow, this is information that I wasn't aware of. And it's happened many times over the sessions where someone has said something, um, and it's really sort of made sense to me. Just for example, last session, I don't know if you remember last session, Tim, there were two violin players, and one violin player
Mhm. Oh,
suggested
yeah.
that they put a pad in between the violin and their shoulder to reduce the volume or the vibrations and the volume. And I thought, wow, that's another really great idea that I'd never thought about. And in fact, that same lady also had a pair of ear defenders that she showed us that were really good. So these are all little tips and tricks that I sort of pick up on as well, and I really benefit from as well because essentially we're both as well musicians with tinnitus, so we're learning from them as much as they're sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
benefiting
We're
from
all
the
trying to, it's all
sessions
trying to
themselves.
really help each other, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah. We're all trying to help each other. I think
yeah,
that's the bottom line with this. It's not a case of, you turning up and us telling you what to do or how you should go on, it's not as prescriptive as that. It really is about it's all kind of mucking in together. And, occasionally you get a pearl of wisdom from somebody else, like you've just said, that seems to happen quite often. And that's useful, it's helpful. And that's
Yeah,
all we're looking for, really, isn't it? Is help how to navigate this thing as best as we can.
yeah, yeah. All right, Tim. So we've got a session in a week's time. But for anybody watching this video, you are welcome. Again, it's free, it's private. Join from anywhere in the world. It's just a click on a Zoom link and it takes you to a Zoom. You can have your camera off, you can have your camera on, you can have your microphone on, off, whichever way you want. But it's just there for you to benefit from if you choose to join us. Tim, I want to say thank you so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I learn from you every session we do these things, and you're a great co-leader, and I really am grateful that we're doing this together because you've got a lot of advice and good tips to share.
Thanks, Jack. Same mutual, chap. I would not be in the position I am, I should say this, without Jack got me on the road to recovery. He was one of the people that actually got me out of the tinnitus black hole. So you're in good hands, folks.
Yeah. All right, folks, thanks for watching, and you're welcome to join us. Go to Tinnitus UK events page, or I'll leave the link in the description box below so that you can just quickly click there. You register, and you get an email telling you when the session is. It's every second Monday, 7 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. Central European time. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one.